This is one I'm definitely excited for. Simon Sports Group or Simon Sports Holdings or whatever your LLC is has been making some big moves, including Ipswich Town. So excited to dive into it today, what you guys are doing, what you've done, who you are. So first, Peter, appreciate you hopping on.
Thanks, Andrew, for having me. Really appreciate it.
So I guess just before we dive too into the details of things, give us the rundown of who you are, what the Simon Group is, and some of what you've done and what you're trying to accomplish ultimately.
Yeah, of course. No, Simon Sports is a part of Simon Group Holdings, and Simon Group Holdings is kind of the umbrella holdings company that owns all my father's different interests, from oil and gas to aerospace and defense, insurance, wine, sports, kind of the family holdings company. And really, the roots trace back all the way to 1973 when my dad immigrated to the United States with nothing other than trying to find a better life, fleeing persecution in Iraq, and came over with his siblings, my grandma and grandpa, and actually immigrated to Birmingham, Michigan, because there was a friend of my grandpa who sponsored my father's family, which was really amazing and kind of kickstarted everything. And then from there, really just worked jobs. My father worked jobs and then started his oil business back in 1985. And then today, that's helped kind of spur his success and kind of, diversified his holdings away from oil and gas into different spaces like sports. And really, the sports started out of a shared passion that my father and I both have for the industry, for the space. And then I grew up playing different sports, and I always wanted to know. I wanted to work in sports. My mom has a video of me when I was 6 or 7, where I said I wanted to be a sports executive. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if it was working for a team, if it was, founding something, which it ended up being. But I always knew I wanted to work in the industry. I was very passionate about it. And then, my brother used to always tease me because, truthfully, instead of watching Disney Channel or Nickelodeon, I would be watching, NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, whatever was on. So it was always kind of, the way in the direction I wanted to go in. And then, I played different sports growing up. I never really stuck to one. I kind of teetered around just because I wanted to understand kind of how, the ins and outs of each one. But I was always fascinated. One thing I was always fascinated with growing up was, the legends of each sport, because I think to get to the level of a Michael Jordan, LeBron, Roger Federer, Wayne Gretzky, even today, like Connor McDavid, which just been happening with the Stanley Cup final, special people, but there's special character behind it as well. So, but I wanted to really understand that all. And then I went to Wayne State University. I got my sports management degree. And then through that, I spent a lot of the summer times, number one, interning in the industry in sports, and then also sitting in meetings with my father, which I think was invaluable for any kid out there and anybody who's trying to get into sports or anything like that. Find a mentor, or find somebody. Doesn't have to be your dad, but find somebody who's experienced and just listen, sit in meetings with them, because it's the encounters and the experience that you get from these meetings are remarkable teachers and remarkable advice and experience, things that really school doesn't teach you. So I really took the summer times to really spend time with my dad. And then from there, when I graduated, is when my dad and I really had the conversation of sports is my passion. It's what I want to do. He loves sports as well. I don't know how many people know this, but he was actually very close back in 2010 to buying and acquiring a significant stake in the Detroit Pistons when they were selling. He's always wanted to get into sports, but truthfully, of course, I was young at the time as well. But when I graduated, it was kind of the perfect time for him and I to start something together, which is how Simon Sports kind of was founded back in 2022. And as you alluded to in the beginning, we've been very active. So
you're a Detroit fan across the board, Pistons, Red Wings, Tigers, or what's your stack?
Pistons fan for sure, diehard Red Wings fan. Tigers I follow somewhat as well, but I would say yes, I'm a Tigers fan. The Lions, I'm probably going to disappoint a lot of Detroit natives, but I'm a diehard Cowboys fan. Yeah, the first game my dad ever took me to was Cowboys and Giants when I was a little kid, and me and my brother just have fallen in love with the Cowboys. They disappoint me every year. Hopefully one year they'll break through and win a Super Bowl. But yeah, diehard Cowboys fan. But other than that, all Detroit sports for sure. And it's a great sports town. Like, man, when our teams are good and when the city's bumping, we have such a passionate fan base for our different teams.
Yeah, and as you guys build your portfolio now, what does it currently look like? What are some
Yeah,
of the moves? Obviously, Ipswich was
of
recent. That
course.
was probably one of the more notable ones, at least news wise.
Yeah, of course. So total, we have about six investments, and split between sports tech and then also sports teams and leagues. So how we kind of structured Simon Sports was we have an operating division and an investing division. So I think of the operating division as kind of our teams and day-to-day management and day-to-day involvement. And then on the investment side, it's more passive stakes and in sports tech media, kind of the growing verticals of the industry. So we wanted to be active in both spaces. And as you alluded to, Ipswich is on the operating side, but with that one, we really have a phenomenal management team. That's kind of the reason why, probably the biggest reason why we invested in the club was, we really enjoyed whether it was the ownership, the staff, and then the fan base and the community. Like, it had a ton of promise when we were looking at the investment, and just in the short time since we've gotten involved, of course, they got promoted to the Premier League, which is amazing. It's truly a testament to Mark Ashton and the whole staff there and the fan base, the community. The excitement that they have for the team, and so we're involved as much as they need us to be there. But that's kind of one that runs itself, and then the one that we are really involved in on the team side is the Halifax Mooseheads in the QMJHL. So the QMJHL, the Quebec Maritimes Junior Hockey League, is part of the CHL, which is the Canadian Hockey League, comprised of 60 teams spread throughout Canada. And then parts of the U.S. as well, 8 teams in the U.S. The CHL is the largest development feeder for NHL clubs. So kids that are 15 get drafted. They play in the CHL for 2 years or however long, to be honest, is their development pipeline up until they're 20. Once they hit 20, they're kind of aged out of our league, and then they can transition either to pro or university. But it's cool because you get to be part of their life at a young age when they're 16 or 17. Like Nathan McKinnon played for Halifax, our team. We've had over 60 NHL alumni that played for the Mooseheads. Nico Heischer as well, captain of the Devils. So we've had an amazing group of players that played for our club. But that one we own outright. So that's one where, when we were going through the due diligence process, my father and I, we realized there was a lot of untapped potential. There's a lot of room for investment. There's room to really take it from what was a great foundation. Bobby Smith, the previous owner, did an excellent job, but we saw that, it can be taken to even further heights with some different areas that we want to invest in and some different improvements to make. And then that's what we've kind of been doing since then. There. And then we're part of, actually, really cool. We're part of a new startup junior hockey league in the West Coast, the Western United States. So a lot of the kids there, this is one that's unique because a lot of the kids there that grow up, it's either, once they turn 15 or 16, there's no natural development for them to take their career on. You either have to relocate to the Midwest, play in the USHL or play in the WHL, either in Seattle or one of the other Western states in the U.S., but there's no local teams within the U.S. hockey umbrella to play in, in Nevada, to play in California, to play in these other states. So we wanted to give them that opportunity. So we joined with a managing partner who's really experienced. His name is Ben Robert. He's owned a team in the USHL, which is the only Tier 1 designated hockey league in the U.S. He's owned a team there. He's worked for the LA Kings. He's a very impressive and accomplished individual in the industry. And he basically had the vision for this league and looked for 6 different ownership groups. So my father and I joined, and we have the territory in Nevada. So we're hopefully launching our team at the end of next year. And we're still working on, if we're a part of one of the leagues that is currently operating, or if we're going to be our own standalone league. But the main vision and the premise behind that league that's starting is giving kids the opportunity in the Western United States to stay local and play for a team nearby rather than having to relocate. So that's kind of where we are on the team side. Now, in the future, we also have an investment that hopefully will come to fruition in Atlanta with Anson Carter. We're part of his group to bring the NHL back to Atlanta. Through a public-private partnership in Alpharetta. Hopefully going to have a whole development district and arena there. And then we're working with some phenomenal partners as well with us. And then, we always want to get into the NHL and get into the big leagues. So this is one where we see a really good opportunity to do that. But there's a lot to be done and a lot still in the future. And then we have a couple tech investments. I won't touch on all of them, but one of them is, one that I want to mention is the Players Impact, which is a business that was founded by Tracy DeForge, who's our partner now. And really what that is you see athletes that, they create a tremendous amount of wealth, and they also, for the first time, they're experiencing the benefits of a contract. And, what they do with that capital that they get, how we educate them to spend it wisely, to put it into areas that creates long-term financial success for them and their families is so important, because a lot of them will, will for the first time be able to do that, and we want to give them the platform to do that. So what the Players Impact does is it's a community of athletes that network together and invest together, and we host events where we bring in companies to pitch to our athletes. We create SPVs for our athletes to directly invest into certain deal flow that we get, all with the premise of, instead of going to big investment banks, instead of going to big private equity firms, everybody gets to be under one community. All the athletes get to know each other and they get to invest together. And that's one we see has a lot of promise in the future. And we just recently got involved with that one.
Yeah, and how are you approaching the community aspect? Obviously, that's a big one in sports in general, teams, leagues, everything's community.
Yes.
How are you thinking about that across all of them?
Well, on the team side, I would say like the community is a big aspect of your team. I mean, how you engage the fan base, how you engage the local community, how you make an impact on the people who are local there. Because at the end of the day, a sports team without a great fan base, it won't work. A sports team without a community connection doesn't work. So it's so important to form those local connections, to form that community presence. I'll give you an example. One of them in Halifax was Nova Scotia had a terrible fire last year, destroyed over, I think, 200 or 300 homes in Nova Scotia. But we actually did something very special with the Mooseheads. We rented out not rented out, sorry, we have a bus, a coach that takes out around our team the entire year. But we wanted to do something really impactful for the community and for little children after the fire, because a lot of these kids who lost their homes, they also lost all their hockey gear. So what we ended up doing was we ended up surprising them. We brought them into our coach, and then we took them to a local department store and bought them all new hockey gear, and we paid for their hockey cards for the following season. So that's like one example that of how you kind of build that community presence. But at the end of the day, it's so important to have a community presence and to really create that connection between your team and even a business and the community.
And how are you evaluating these? We'll just stay on the franchise, because you have from junior hockey, you were talking about, all the way up to potentially NHL in Atlanta. How are you evaluating across this ecosystem? What are you looking for? What's interesting to you guys? How are you?
Yeah, of course, we're really focused on specifically the opportunity, I would say. It changes all the time. Like, it doesn't have to be linear. Like teams, tech investments, kind of, they're two separate realms, but also equally important in sports. And that's the beauty of it, is like tech is evolving. You can see new startup leagues are coming along. So how can we be part of that growth? Because we really believe, yes, sports have been known for years and years, but there's a lot of future value to be had if you get into the right situation. So we really want to get involved in the growth stage of something. So we want to get involved, like what we've done to date, whether it's the Mooseheads, whether it's Ipswich, whether it's the NHL team, whether it's a startup team in Vegas. It's very much about, we're getting in at a certain time where, there's not just a stalemate going on. Like, it's something where, because we're getting in at a certain time, we can see that there's tremendous potential to grow an asset and tremendous potential to grow the investment over a long period of time, or however long the investment matures for. But at the end of the day, we don't want to just be passengers. We always say we want to be a resource. We want to help out. We want to support. So like, how I kind of think of things is, would I rather own 2% of, an NBA or an NFL team, or would I rather, be on the board at Ipswich, and at least, while we're not making the decisions, while we really empower the people, at least we feel like we're a part of the team, we're a part of a family, and we're part of a franchise of some sort. Same thing with Halifax. Like, we want to be involved in the growth stage, and we want to get involved with something that we believe has tremendous potential. And then down the road, like I can see us getting involved in women's sports in some capacity. The NWSL, you can see what they're doing, CLGP, different leagues and different things that are really coming aboard. How can we get involved right now? While the iron's hot, but we see that team values continue to grow, specifically in the NWSL, quadrupling from what an entry price is to when they sell. So really making sure that we're focused on specific opportunities and getting in at a good time where it's in the growth stage where there's a lot of future potential and a lot of future success to be had.
And from a timeline horizon, are you viewing yourselves more like a traditional family office where you're patient, you'll let this go over as long as it wants? Do you sort of have internally some ideas of, do we want to flip some of these? Are these long-term, maybe lifetime holdings? What's sort of the thinking around that as you guys build the portfolio?
Yeah, so the beauty of what we've done thus far is it's all been private family capital. So it's not like we have an exit period, a timeline, a horizon. I'm still young as well, so I'm looking at hopefully some of these assets longer term will be things I can pass down to my children. But at the same time, if the price is right, of course, sometimes it's a smart decision to exit at a certain point, but we don't really have a timeline or horizon. I think it's more depending on what happens, depending on how these investments mature. That's part of the decision making that I think we have to make in the future is depending on the opportunity, depending on the investment. We have to make certain decisions, which we're willing to do at the time, but we don't really have a typical private equity timeline where we have to exit. We just are looking at growing the value of our investment and kind of being a part of success and being a part of something that's special.
And for founders, obviously you've done a little bit more on the team league. We'll just call it the IP side than the tech. What are some good ways that you've seen or ways to catch your attention? Is there anything from founder they're building a new sports tech company? Are there certain metrics? Are there certain areas? Where's sort of a sweet spot where you're at least gonna be like, all right, we're gonna dive deeper into this.
I think, as I alluded to, I think women's sports is growing. I think even you can look at the junior. I think in the junior realm, whether it's minor league baseball, junior hockey, any of these spaces, I think it's really about the market. You have to find a good market, one that the competition. I wouldn't say you can't have no competition, but at the same time, I always use the analogy. Like if you have a junior hockey team in Detroit, are you going to go watch the Red Wings or are you going to go watch the junior hockey team? So I think it's very much about the market in the junior space, and I think that's where we look a lot. There is really at the market and the opportunity. But I think in the long term, I think women's sports will continue to grow, and then I think on the sports tech side, it's really important to be, a pioneer in whatever you're doing. I really think like whether it's AI, whether it's different technology and measuring of biometrics or any of those realms that are growing, I really think you need to differentiate yourself because there is a lot of concentration, there is a lot of competitiveness that's going on in the industry, and unless you have a differentiator, that's really what's going to set one apart. And then on the team side, we really invest in people. That's always been a premise of what my father has done and what kind of I've carried on from him is you have to invest with good people. At the end of the day, good people, they make the difference in the business. As much as you can talk about competitiveness and an industry where there's a lot of players in the market, good people and people are really good at what they do. They make the difference in success, and they're the biggest differentiator. And that's why we were sold on Ipswich was the people. Truthfully, that's why even when we were looking at the Mooseheads, we were blessed to be in a situation where we already had a good management team. It wasn't a turnaround. And even when we do things in Vegas, we're going to do it right from the beginning with our junior hockey team there. So we're all about people. At the end of the day, people make the difference. So as we go forward and as we look at the future of sports as well, that's never going to change for us. As we always want to invest with people. If we're going to do something, we're going to do it right.
I love that. And you brought up a few AI, biomechanics, any areas like right now you're deeply looking at or keeping a close eye on, and you're like, all right, here's a space. I know you mentioned women's sports that you're like, okay, I could see some of our next moves being in these areas.
Biometrics and AI, I would say not so much. I think I'm very focused on analytics. I've learned even at Ipswich, like they have a robust analytics team and a program there. We're trying to do more of that in Halifax. And then even looking at the future of where, even executives in sports and management staffs for teams, like you're seeing people cross sports because they're really analytically focused, but they're able to pivot from baseball to hockey because of analytics. We've always been very detailed. My father has, running his company is very detailed on measuring, very detailed on, if we're making a decision, why are we doing that? What is the data behind it? So I would say analytics is something that we're always looking towards in the future, because I also believe like there's a tie-in with analytics to our current teams and everything that we're doing there. So it's a natural synergy between analytics and our teams and the different stuff we have going.
And when you think of the Simon Holding Group, I know you guys have interest, real estate, gas, wine. You have a bunch of different things. How much like do you think of sports as? Like, do you have a set, like we want this much allocated towards sports, or are you is that increasing? Well, that how are you viewing it as a
Yeah, of
portfolio in
course.
whole?
Yeah, so my father kind of takes the role of, he has the oversight over all of Simon Group Holdings and all the different entities. I'm very just focused on the sports side, and I think I'm blessed to have the support system I have between my mom and my dad. And my dad is very much about, he knows this is my passion. He knows, he has a passion for it. And more than anything, we don't want to we're making good decisions, hopefully, because of the industry. You can see how much the industry is growing, the valuation for the team. So it's not like we're just allocating capital in not the smartest of ways. Like, we're trying to make smart decisions, but at the same time, we don't have a cap on what we're doing. We really don't have like a limit. I would say, like, at the point that we're at now, we're more looking at how we maximize our current portfolio. We have a lot of eggs in different baskets, and how we maximize long-term success for each one of our portfolio teams. And then even on the tech side, we're really focused on, like, look, as I said, we want to get in something in the growth stage, but when you're in the growth stage, there's a lot of attention you have to pay to the different investments that you have. So we're very much not losing our track on our eye on, like, we're here to support the different investments we've made. We're here to be a resource, and we're here to really step in and be involved and really help them grow.
What's website, socials? Where can people reach out and or learn more?
So we have simonsports.com. We're launching a new website in the next couple months. We had kind of a startup one that worked up until this point, but now kind of growing, and everything that we've been doing, we're launching a new website, simonsports.com. I'm not very active on social media pages or anything like that. I try to stay away from that. So not really focused in that, but simonsports.com. We have a LinkedIn page as well. And then you can follow our different teams from there. So you can see Ipswich, you can see the Mooseheads as well, and the Players Impact, which is really cool. We actually were going to be at Summer League in a couple weeks in Vegas. We have an event there. So, a lot of good things happening with that business, and that's one that's really heavily focused, of course, in the media realm and the media space, with everything that we have going on with our athletes. So,
Love it. Awesome. Well, Peter, appreciate you coming on, and look forward to the next one.
Andrew, wishing you many success. Thank you, and congratulations on everything you've done with Profluence in the podcast, and wishing you nothing but the best in the future, and keep it up, my friend.